Welcome to CITE Career Connect with Kate. I'm Kate Whitfield, a principal with Alta Planning and Design in Ottawa. So the goal of each and every episode is to bring people together to talk about their stories in the jobs they have, and for those job seekers to give some advice. So in the episode you're about to see, it takes us in a conversation about resiliency, environmental planning as it relates to transportation planning, and then we dive into the types of software people need to get jobs. So in there is some really fantastic advice about software, communicating skills, communicating the type of job that you're looking for. So I hope you enjoy the episode and we'll get started now. Welcome everyone to the 6th episode of CITE Career Connects. As you know, each speaker will start with 2 minutes to introduce a topic of interest related to our field. I'll introduce each speaker, we'll go back and forth between people currently working in the field and job seekers. So we'll see what kind of conversation we get going. So our first speaker is Rachel. She's going to start us off after I do a brief introduction. Rachel's a program manager with the Sustainable Mobility Group at the City of Hamilton, Ontario. She's a transportation planner working in sustainable mobility, active transportation, microtransit, bike share, and transportation demand management. Rachel and I have crossed paths many times, obvious common interests there in that list. And I just enjoy getting to know you more through your talk. So I'll pass it to you, Rachel, for your 2 minutes.
Awesome. Thanks, Kate. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. So one of the really exciting projects that I've been working on recently is related to the COVID mobility recovery plan that the city introduced in June. So the background of this was when the pandemic first struck back in March and April, we saw countries and cities around the world doing all sorts of amazing things for active transportation, for cycling and walking and transit. And we were amazed and so excited every day. We'd see something new on Twitter and we're like, oh, how can we do that in Hamilton? So we watched and we sort of saw the best practices and what, the community loved and the reactions on Twitter. And we started putting together our own plan and thinking about what we could do. And we saw our neighboring cities in Kitchener, Waterloo, and Brampton, Mississauga doing these cool projects. And there's a big push from the community to do something in Hamilton. So we started working on accelerating some big projects. And for me, this was really exciting because normally in the spring and summer, I'm doing a lot of engagement. So I'm doing a lot of things for Bike Month, which is usually in June, and running around helping set up bike valets and running community engagements, going out doing PICs and things like that. So it was really exciting for me to have time to work on cycling infrastructure projects, which I loved. And so we did a lot of enhancements. That was our big project. Instead of doing temporary solutions, we wanted to enhance existing infrastructure we have. And once our plan was approved by council, we had a lot of resources to get working on these projects. And so we worked across the city with all sorts of different stakeholders, including traffic, different engineers, design, transit, and counselors to try and, get these projects rolling as quickly as possible. So a lot of the projects, for example, there were things like rubber curbing, which we then upgraded to concrete curbs. And it was a pretty quick change because we already had paint on the roads and those bike lanes were already there. So there are a lot of things we could skip and accelerate the projects. And it worked out really well. So far we've implemented 4 or 5 projects that we probably wouldn't have got to this year without this COVID recovery. And the feedback from the community has been really amazing. We've been really excited to see people, try the new bike lanes. We've been trying to focus more on all ages and abilities, creating cycling infrastructure for everyone, which has been really exciting to see more kids riding around neighborhood streets and on our new enhanced upgraded cycling infrastructure. So that's been an awesome project that I've been working on.
Wow, and it shows all the players and how dynamic and shifting priorities and plans and everything all in one story there. So that's really wonderful. So our next speaker is Reza, one of our job seekers. Reza is a graduate researcher, transportation modeler at Concordia University. His experience is in intelligent transportation systems, traffic planning, data analysis, Python development, and project management. Reza is also the secretary of CITE Montreal student chapter. So we like to have great volunteers here. That's wonderful. So Reza, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you for your great introduction. So I'm going to jump right back on the project that I did during my master. So the project I was involved, it was the traffic demand modeling and forecasting. So basically, we develop a framework for municipalities in order to forecast their budget for how can they invest their budget based on the different strategies for like travel demand strategies and also payment management strategies. And after that, the project was involved with so many data sources. So we use traffic data from the traffic cameras and also OD surveys, which is involved with people behavior, people traffic behavior. And also we use census data, which is related to the population. And after that, I worked about 6 months on a contract with as a graduate researcher at Concordia. So the project was there. It was related to demand modeling, and we were trying to model the Montreal bus traffic, the bus route, in order to see how much traffic from bus and also private car will affect the gas emission. So we installed some sensor in the downtown area to measure the percentage of the related to the traffic. And I was involved with 40 team members. So we were in the traffic team, and I was involved to model the traffic behavior of the downtown area. And as you said, yeah, I was also involved in the CIT student chapter in Montreal. So we had so many events in the Quebec because we are the Quebec student chapter. So every semester we had some events from the graduate students and also undergraduate students to encourage them to be in the field of transport. So I'm really excited to be here as well.
That's great. And that first story had like data, it had asset management, something we talk about so much in our workplaces. And that's great too about the student chapter. Wonderful. Yeah. So next, we'll pass it over to Imran, a transportation engineer with Parsons. So I don't know much about you yet, but I look forward to learning about you, right? With this background in transportation planning and engineering. And I like your LinkedIn write-up. So if I do it justice, seeking to better understand individual travel decisions and their interactions with transportation infrastructure. So I'll pass it over to you to tell us more.
Thank you, Kat. Thank you for having me. And I think before I speak about myself, it is a good opportunity to tell you something, especially to the job seekers who are out there exploring different companies, something about the Parsons and why I thought I should do this. Because if you go to the website, and I can relate it to my own experience when I was doing the job search about 3-4 years back. So you can see so many sci-fi things on Parsons because it is huge. And the transportation planning and the traffic engineering, all those things, you are not able to find if Parsons does those things or not. So in Canada, yes, we very much do all these kind of things. We do the transportation planning, the traffic engineering, transit planning, and mostly we do it in support for the detailed design. So we are an engineering consultancy, not a planning firm. So as such, you might not find the planning on the website, but if you dig deep, you will find everything. Okay. So I am a transportation planning and traffic design engineer, and my typical day looks like working with the Synchro and VISUM and doing transportation assessments for different planning assignments like environmental assessments, transportation master plans, and we don't do the traffic impact studies. Company doesn't like doing for the private developers. So we are mostly with the MTO and regional municipalities. Okay. Right now I am working on an environmental assessment for a region of Niagara. It is Montrose Road. And why this project is unique, because at this time it is a rural road, but in 5, 10 years and 20 years time, there is a big hospital, regional hospital coming up there. They have plans for a lot of residential and mixed use developments. Right now there is a huge commercial development being constructed. So all these traffic studies, they were done in their own isolated time frame, but now we have to consolidate everything and then come up with a bigger picture how the traffic demand would look like on the Montrose Road. What would be the functional components that our design engineers have to go and then do the detailed design. So for this, we took all the different individual traffic impact studies, worked out their synergies because they were done in isolated time, point in time. So we had to work out the synergies, how the demand would be interacting within different mixed-use developments. So that was basically the unique component of this project, and we are still doing the forecasting. And part of the segment was hugely congested as we came or predicted with the synchro result. And then we are doing micro simulation in VISUM as well to further confirm different traffic design components. So this is what.
So, Imran, I like how you added a tip at the beginning of your talk there. So to help everybody too, take that a little further. I worked at Parsons too, and you did not know what company we worked at from their website. It was cybersecurity and maybe military bases, and you didn't see transportation. So it's in the networking, the job hunting tips. He's right? Not necessarily all tell the right story. You hear it from the people. And the other tip in there was knowing if a company does private development, so planning application TISs, so transportation impact studies, or municipal sort of modeling for environmental assessments. There's a lot in there. So I'm going to stop there, but there was a tip attached to the beginning of that story. So thank you for sharing that. It's fun too to think of the Parsons connection there. So Drew, we'll pass it over to you. A civil engineering graduate at the University of Ottawa, seeking full-time employment for winter 2021. So, you're dedicated to this job hunt process. As soon as we're done, you're going to write a midterm. So we appreciate that you took this time. I get the sense your background is more in sort of construction, site engineering, and project management, which is great. So I'd like to hear your 2-minute talk now.
So hello everyone. Thanks, Kate, for the introduction. So yes, as Kate mentioned, I'm a civil engineering graduate at the University of Ottawa. So I'll right away jump into my field project and internships. So basically, I don't have much experience in transportation. Sorry for that. And I did much in the site engineering or structure related. So I'll talk about one of my projects previously, which I did in my winter last term. So in that, there was a Dunton Tower, a Carlton's famous tower, which we need to analyze in ETAPS for the seismic earthquake analysis. So we removed all the shear walls and we replaced it with the columns, and we analyzed it in the STED Pro and compared the normal shear wall answers and what if we remove the shear walls and replace it with the columns. And that's how I give up my final project. So that's one of my interesting projects. Other than that, I'm right now working on something related to project management because that's what my interest in, and because of that I came into University of Ottawa. So I'm right now working on this CAPM exam. So it's construction associated project management. So I'm working on that and planning to do it in November. So, and I'm international, so back in my home country I do have some good experience in this internships and projects, but I don't have much of the field experience. So I'm looking for some full times after my studies, and that's much of my introduction. Thank you.
That's great, and thank you for sharing that story. And so I think you said November, right, for this exam. So first today's exam, and then take on your November certification. Yes. Awesome. So the next speaker is Zen. So transportation engineer with Stantec, based in Edmonton. So an impressive resume with such a long list of different software skills, from modeling packages to geometric design. I think I read VISUM, EMME, Synchro, you name it, you do it. And you also volunteer as a mentor at the University of Alberta, which is part of, and you reached out to me, you said, I want to help too. So I think that's really wonderful. So I'll pass it to you for you to tell your story.
Okay, thank you, Kate, and thank you for the introduction, and thank you, everybody, for having me here. And I have been transportation in my past 8 years working experience. I work for the 3 companies, and right now I'm working with Stantec as a transportation engineer. And I have a great impression for my job is like I need to coordinate with the different colleagues from different disciplines. For example, in the past, I worked with architects in our company to work on some parking, traffic, vehicle circulation analysis to accommodate the parking in the parkade or garage. And also I work with the civil engineering for geometric design to do some traffic safety analysis for the roundabout design. And I also work with our urban planners when they're creating the area development plan or a structure plan. So pretty much I prepare for the transportation plan in the big planning package. And I also work with the electrical engineers to do some traffic signal optimization. So I think my impression is like I definitely need to improve a lot for my communication, coordination with the different team members for my company. I want to share one interesting projects I worked on 1 year ago for the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo in northern Alberta. The big center is Fort Mac, which is Canada's oil field. So at that time, the municipality want to update the parking and loading for their bylaw. So at that time, we take this job, and there are several challenges for me. It's like one is a limited budget and manpower, so we cannot send the people in the field to do a lot of data collection for the parking occupancy, especially that project is in February. And also, this is a big area. It's not only the city center, so it's really hard to capture all the data. So I work with the municipality and my company at that time to figure out the way to do the drone like photography, and we just select the different locations and set up the timeline and use their drone technology to capture the aerial photos for the different location we selected. And after that, we just work with the municipality to calibrate the data and see whether something is missing, because a lot of land uses, buildings, they're just like complex. So you need to figure out which parking occupancy is belong to which one. And also after that, there's some missing part, for example, the garage underground parking, and we have to find our technologists to go there to check that specific location and capture those data. After that, we also collected the similar municipalities best practice and compare to their bylaw, because Fort Mac is not like the bigger city like Toronto or Edmonton, so we have to find the realistic rates calculated and submit it to the city. Last but not least, we want to introduce some TDM, like traffic demand management, and also some smart parking technologies. After several discussions, we found like, oh, this probably is hard, because there's just like a lot of the working people in the field working people in the Fort Mac, and it's really hard to deploy those technologies based on the reality. So this is a great experience for me to learn from several parties, like a municipality, my company, and also some subcontractors. And I definitely feel like a communication is really key role for the successful project.
I like what you did there too, because I set you up about modeling and in all the but really that answer was about communication, relationships with municipalities, best practice, and policy. It had a whole lot, so that really showed all the different parts of your job. So thank you for that. Okay, so last but not least is Jenny, but Jenny is a fun one because she agreed to do this taping and then she went and got herself a job. So Jenny started as an engineering coordinator at Parsons, which is also a lovely coincidence that you're meeting your coworker from the same firm in this episode. So I think that's really wonderful. I'll let you tell your story, because you wanted to come anyways. You wanted to share coming, from Colombia, coming to Canada, getting a job as an environmental planner, telling your story. So I'll pass it to you. Still go for the 2 minutes, please, and then we'll see what discussion we get going.
Thank you so much, Kay, for having me, and thank you everyone for this invitation. Yeah, I was happy to see Imran. I wanted to contact him, but I just got busy. I got a new job. So my background, I'm forestry engineer, but I really never have working as a forestry engineer. I have working every time as environmental planner. The environmental and the planification is my passion. So when I came to Canada 3 years ago, I was trying to go back to the same field. And I just got pregnant and I was on maternity leave. So I just started to trying to find my job this year. In November last year, I started searching for a job and I got a job, and then the pandemic happened. So they withdrew the offer. I keep doing my my networking, and this is the part of the story that I think I wanted to share, because I do a lot of networking, you know, but I was new in the country. I didn't have experience in here, even though I have 8 years of experience in environmental planning, and I really wanted to focus in that again. It wasn't easy. And just from networking, I got my first chance, and that chance was in person. And it was same for me, because when someone say Parsons, I went to the homepage and what's this? Security, nuclear arms, and many other things. I didn't found in there the position that someone sent it to me. So I was like, I don't know what is this, but I'm going to apply. Is this a job that I wanted? And then I went to the interview. I have a couple of interviews because they sent me invitation for a job that fit my profile back home, you know, but not in here, because in here, even though I have a really background back home, I don't have experience here. So I honestly say to this person, I don't have the experience in here, so I cannot fit that background. And she said, but I like your background, I like your experience. I'm going to give you the chance to have another interview with another part of the team. And I'm working now also in transportation planning, but in the environmental area with the environmental team, which I'm pretty happy. I also don't have a lot of experience in transportation, but I have a lot of experience, as I said, in environmental assessment. So what makes me think about transportation for my work now is because my master's degree thesis was based on how we can be resilient as a city. And due that my city back home is one of the biggest cities of my country, but we are a valley, so all the houses are almost in the side hill. So we have a specific requirement for everything. And the transportation, we cannot enhance the roads, but we need to be efficient. So I was trying to see how we can be efficient and resilient, you know, because I'm still environmental. So when I came here and I start to see that actually Canada is a country that is developing. You know, we have a lot of area that we need to grow. We are building a lot of not just housing and market, or just a lot of roads and everything. So I found that this is like the great place for start to work on that. So my wishes in the future, maybe I can, when I finally I get a lot of experience, I can focus in more also in this part, how we can make all these amazing planning of the transportation more resilient and kind of environmental friendly, because I know we cannot be sustainable, but we can be resilient. So this is kind of what I'm doing now, what I wanted to do. And I'm happy now. Yeah, I came here at the beginning as a job seeker. Now, thank you, God, I can just come here to share the experience, how through my networking, I could find a job that give me the opportunity to grow and build my career in Canada.
Yeah, and Jenny, there's so much in what you just shared, right? Because even you said, I'm an environmental planner, I work in transportation. We think of all the roles environmental planning is in environmental assessments, right? Which we've talked about that a little bit. And that word resiliency is in, it's not just, it's in documents, it's in requests for proposals, but do people actually know what it means? So Rachel, I'm going to throw it at you. Can you just talk about maybe environmental planning and transportation planning groups, and maybe even try resiliency? Does Hamilton talk those? How do they talk about that kind of subject?
Sure. I mean, we used to be in the same section. Transportation planning and environmental planning used to be together, which was interesting. And obviously, there's lots of similarities when we're doing EAs and stuff like that. So we still have a strong connection with those people. And as we're talking climate change now and resiliency and making a climate change plan, that becomes even more important because, as we know, transportation is a huge contributor to greenhouse gases and all those things. So it's been interesting to see what we can do and what other people think transportation can do and what we as city staff can do when we are kind of low on the totem pole. Like we can't tell everyone to get electric vehicles and things like that, but what can we do to encourage? Our side is more about the encouraging cycling and walking and making trips convenient and working with schools, starting them when they're young and getting them to walk to school and cycle to school and things like that. So I think it's an interesting place to be for transportation planning.
Yeah, and then in terms of jobs, when you speak, we're also thinking from the private sector. You said our departments used to be together. I think is that's a great example. You might have a job in transportation, your coworkers are in another department, so there would be that influence, and then there would be political influences. Like today, this is the most important. This is what we need to be thinking about. Now, staff, go do it, right? And maybe you didn't have a role in the direction. So as a transportation planner, you're trying to figure out how something fits into your job. So there's a lot in there. What about Zen and Stantec, resiliency and bringing together environmental planners with the transportation crowd? Do you have anything to add there?
I think usually for us, definitely right now, because of this pandemic things and everything got to be tougher. And when we provide our design, our planning, and we always think about like how to accommodate the reality. Sometimes like when we're doing some like neighborhood design or any traffic operation or safety studies, and we're just trying to think about different ways, not only like a traditional way, like when we collect the data and do some traffic analysis, but more important thing is like, for example, when we work with some urban planning team, we're trying to set up a more like public engagement sessions and get more feedback from the reality and see like what is more realistic when we apply our measures, and also at the same time because of the short budget or the other things, and we trying to find more like efficient things and compared to like we just propose add more lanes or get more infrastructure. So I think I learned a lot from my company and the colleagues to have different angles to think about the big problems in reality.
Yeah. But even your earlier story about parking, right? So you might be applying a municipality's parking rules, but then also talking about how they need to change, right? Instead of the status quo and that
Yes.
impact on the environment. So I'll just use this, catch my breath while I say, does anyone have a question from sort of about what was introduced in the beginning? If you unmute yourself if you have a question, otherwise I'll move to the career tip and we'll keep weaving this back in, but part of this talk is always about sort of understanding jobs out there and what it's like in the different sectors. Imran, you have something you want to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add about the transportation resiliency, and I think this is the right time we talk about that. We have a pandemic at this time, and a lot of transportation networks, people are looking into that, how they are behaving or how they would be reacting to this new situation, like the transit network, how resilient they are to adapt to this new dynamics as the air transportation network. So we are not really doing any work as Parsons, specifically with the resiliency of the network. But there are studies going on, like we have the complete street projects. So in that active transportation and the biking networks, etc. So those are the new alternatives which can provide the transportation necessities when the transit is not working and when people are not driving. University of Toronto, they are having student projects specifically for the resiliency of the project in this pandemic. So I just wanted to add that we have a new dimension to the resiliency of the transportation networks now with this pandemic.
Yeah, so we pile it on, absolutely.
Yeah, and then 15 minutes neighborhood, yeah.
Yeah, 15 minutes, yeah, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Wonderful. So, okay, we're going to actually talk about software. It's still related to what we were covering earlier. I often get asked, what software do I need to get a job? That's one element of the question, but it's also when people communicate what they have, how do you communicate what level of skill you have? And then once you get into the job, how much is the job going to support you in training? So Rachel, I'm going to go to you first because of the public sector side. I'm going to make some assumptions that job postings would list kind of expectations, maybe clearer than private sector, I'm not sure. But maybe you could answer what software in a city is typical. Is it CAD, MicroStation, Synchro? Just a quick, and then maybe a comment about training in the public sector.
Yeah, I think like for me, the software is not a big piece of it because we work with others who have those jobs. So like design would do all the AutoCAD stuff and I would say, okay, I want to see a bike lane that looks like this and I want it to be, you know, like this and I do this at this intersection, protected intersection. Here's some examples that I pulled from this city, go and do it. And I don't know, they do it. That's not my expertise. So I think that's something interesting that I don't deal with as much. But I think definitely there is an interest in getting our team to be able to do some of those things, even just understanding how it works so that when we're telling the engineers what we want to see and they're like, that doesn't make sense. I've definitely been offered to do trainings on things like that where at least I can get to like a comprehensive level of the software, but not like a working knowledge because it's not my job to do that kind of design work. But there's definitely support for us to do kind of whatever training we want, as long as we can justify that it will help us.
So there's a lot in there that would be like, depending on the job posting, if it's someone's job, obviously, that's there to do drafting all day, then they're going to have a certain level. So I'll just say that my favorite tip, every resume says someone can open GIS, ArcGIS and CAD, almost 100%. So now write intermediate, write advanced, if you actually can use it, because it will make a difference if every resume says that. I took GIS in school doesn't mean I can do it now. So that's my tip there. Zen, do you want to try? And then we'll go to Imran.
Yeah, I can see something about software. So first of all, I think we learned a lot from our college time about the software. Like for transportation planning and operation, we learned Synchro or maybe like the EMME or like some PTV, VISUM things. But definitely at that time, it's very basic. So while trying to find my job at that time, I cannot either say I'm an expert. Maybe Synchro, I feel more comfortable, but the others, I'm not sure. Like I have the big experience for that. So, but the good one is like when I joined my totally 3 companies, each one has a great training session. My colleagues usually just teach me a lot of tips and how to use it based on the projects. And I can learn faster based on what I just go back to find a manual and learn that. I think for transportation planning and operation, on my daily basis, I use Synchro the most for sure. And also I really like another one, which is PTV's Vistro. And it is a great way to do the traffic impact analysis. And I think it's more easier to do some trip generation, distribution and assignment by using that tool compared to manually draw some like data assignment. I use that one with my company in Stantec admin office, and it worked well when you have a big network, several intersections. And usually I combine the PTV Vistro and Synchro together to create some outputs like analysis results and also some good images and data exhibition. I think that's a good one. Last, I think I really want to learn some like basic CAD skills. For example, I'm not an expert for AutoCAD or Civil 3D, but I really like the AutoTem because sometimes they use that one for me to do some like a swipe pass analysis. So I use that way to support my civil team and also architecture team. So it's also very useful to find a small portion of the CAD design things for you. And
Yeah, but
also,
in what you're saying too is not everybody's going to get trained in every one. So
yeah.
while a company might have support, it's still tied to your job. Like if so, sometimes it is some self-learning, but it is an interesting question about. There's the obvious ones that a lot of firms use, right? So the obvious ones, synchro gets said all the time, and that the episode we had about Chris getting a job. And we made the point that his VISUM experience helped make a difference getting the kind of job he was looking for. Not everyone needs VISUM, but it helped him, like that base knowledge. So there's something in there. If anyone has another question, while you formulate your question, I'm going to ask Imran, do you want us to talk about software in your experience?
Yeah, sure. So taking lead from what Zheng has just said, I would like to divide the software skills in two streams. One is synchro is, of course, common to both of them. So either you are a transportation planner and some kind of designer, or you are a planner and the modeler. So I would not recommend mixing those because then you will not be a master of anything. So synchro is the must as a planner, at least as a transportation planner or traffic engineer should know synchro. If not from the school, most companies, they really make they teach you, and it is not difficult to learn. And then with that, we can combine these CAD skills, like Zen said, auto turn or the functional design skills. Especially, they come really handy when we are dealing with the private developers. And if we are not the CAD guy, we can learn the modeling in micro simulation VISIM and might be the EMME. So these two streams, whoever want to excel, I think they should really explore in which stream they would like to go. So that's what I wanted to add to what Zheng said.
Yeah, and that's great. And the other fun comment here is you don't even have to have software. It's not something that is in my everyday and wasn't when I was looking for a job, and Rachel hinted at that too on her job. But it's just a question I get a lot from people just about, or that desire. What other training can I get to help me get a job? So I'm trying to give some good advice about that, recognizing that people are looking for jobs in these times. Jenny, was there any software that you needed, or can you talk about that before getting your job and maybe once you started?
Yeah, my experience is same as Rachel. I used to be the one who say I need to get this done and someone do it for me. But basically back in the time, we used to a lot of GIS. These days, people is also more comfortable using Google Earth because has more new picture, like the images are much better. So it's easy and they can have the same the same pictures. So you can use it. So I used to use that. Same as you say, I am one I'm one of those who say I know how to use CAD, but I just know how to open it and look what I need, and that's it. Don't ask me to draw anything. And it's important to have those tools. I think it depends on the kind of the job that you want to apply for, you know. So for example, for me, for my job, it's important for me to know how to read it. But if I want someone who really make the plan and everything, we need someone else. So, but I think in the environmental side is more useful like a CAD and, no, not CAD, I'm sorry, GIS and Google Earth, because we every time use images and we need to see the nature and the everything. So.
That's really great. That's really great. And just to add the other one would be like Illustrator, InDesign. So whenever I see that, I'm trying to figure out, is someone like graphics person? Like, are they good at the look and feel, or they can just open the file, right? Like that's also communicating your interest, what you're good at because that's a different type of job too, within all these different types of transportation responsibilities. But if you're going to sit there and make really great graphics for a project to communicate something, and you're really good in InDesign, Illustrator, any kind of design package, that's another set of skills. So Reza, you're sitting there. Do you have a question for us?
Yeah, just I want to add something. The one that you said about the software. The software is like, as you said, it's like a tool that help you to stand out your resume. So basically, the knowledge behind the software that you are gaining by just working with the software is much more important. So, and most of the, as the Imran said, most of the companies are doing the training. So in my end, I used a lot of VISUM and EMME for the traffic demand modeling. So behind that, I use a lot of GIS because I have to integrate data into the GIS and then put it on the VISUM. So the thing is that the knowledge that you are gaining beside the software is much important, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's still though, like just down to like getting a job, I'm going to talk like this. It's still, if I hire you, what are you doing day, maybe not 1, but day 4? So if I have a sense from your resume of your background, it doesn't mean you're an expert at it, but I have a sense of what you could be doing, especially in private sector. I'll speak from that only. That's sort of one of our demands is like, could I put you in front of a computer and soon
Yes.
you would be drafting? And I look at your resume and try and guess by what you tell me. Some people are very good at just making it obvious. Others,
Sure.
I'm guessing, right, Reza? So, but you also, you said Python, right?
Yeah.
So talk about that.
So because we deal with a lot of data integration, so because it was a huge amount of data, it's like a big data. So I use Python to integrate that and cleaning the data. And after that, I use it for the GIS interface in order to prepare data for the VISUM and for the analysis.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the Python part was just handling the data integration and cleaning.
Mm-hmm. There was a job posting at the city of Ottawa recently that someone shared with me to see if I could help get them any good names. And Python was on there, and I hadn't seen that listed places yet. But I saw it in the city of Ottawa, and it was, you're bang on. It was a data related job, so that makes sense. But I hadn't seen that appear in other job postings.
Yeah, most of these on the transport modeling part. So
yeah, that's great. Dhruv, do you want to say anything or ask a question?
So I'm a job seeker, so I have a question. Like, if I do have a knowledge of AutoCAD, and AutoCAD is one of the requirements for the job, but is it possible that I don't have advanced level knowledge in the particular software? So can I apply for the job with some basic knowledge, because I don't have any industry experience? I don't know how to use it in a real project, and I haven't used it previously in the real project as well. So that's why, is it okay to apply with the basic knowledge, and or do I need to master it and then I need to go for it?
So I'm going to start the answer, and then one of the people that are currently with a job, if you unmute, then I'll go to you next. So honestly, yes, you apply, right? But sometimes I find people have building CAD experience, not road CAD. So I got to like figure that out with them. That's a different thinking. And then of course, it is our responsibility to train. It's also what type of job you're applying for too, right? A senior position or a junior position. So you're off to a good start with CAD. My comment about it is everyone, and Jenny hit it too, everyone says they have it, but opening a file is still different than creating a drawing base and truly being good at the information management side, right? So that's a good one to use, but it's everywhere. CAD is in every type of job, but I can I can see it in lots of, so I need to understand, maybe use your cover letter to explain a little bit more about it as a hint.
Okay, got it. But some of the organizations, they have their own softwares. Like previously I was looking for one of the organizations, they are looking for some estimator position. So they do have their own softwares. I have using Costex as an estimation software, but those guys do have their own software. So sometimes it's like we don't have much knowledge about the other ones, but we do know about the basic softwares like Costex. So that's why I'm a bit worried, like, should I apply for the position, because I do have all the qualifications they do require, but I don't know much about the particular software.
Okay, so cost estimating, that's a great one. There's so many jobs. Common job listing is cost estimating. So whenever I think someone's applying to that kind of job, it's some language around construction, some language around what it takes to build something, the concept of tender spec, like that there's some standardization. Anyone else want to take that one further? Like that, there's some language you can show that you understand. It doesn't mean you know the software of that company. But what they're looking for, right, is someone meeting a standard, someone meeting a code, someone meeting a process.
Yes.
Your job will be to churn out that process. So I think you can demonstrate that. Anybody else want to add?
I would like to add something because I was in his same position. So what I think is you need to know what you feel comfortable with, you know, maybe, and it's also depend on the kind of job that you want to do. For example, I know maybe I'm not going to draw anything in CAD. So I can say, you know, I know how to use it, but I don't know how to draw. You know how to draw in there. So it also depends how you feel comfortable. If you think this job is definitely drawing or is definitely using this software and you really don't have enough experience, so maybe it's not a good idea to apply. But some jobs just use it as a tool, like a side tool, or because as Kate said, you need to open it and know how to read it. So you need to be really sure what kind of job it is. And then the other option is you can apply, and then in your interview, as I say, for example, I think this is more open in the private sector. In my interview, I was able to say, this is my experience, this is what I can do, this is what I'm sure I can learn fast, I can do this. And then they can say, okay, you are the right person or not. So don't feel afraid to apply, just try to apply. But just when you feel really comfortable, because you also don't want to go in a job when you are going to feel so stressed out because you don't know how to do it.
Yes.
So it depends of the job that you are applying for and the kind of software that you think you're really going to use and how you're going to use.
Great, Jenny. That's really great. Zen, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I totally agree with Jenny. I think before my job with Stantec, I also tried to apply for another position, which mainly focused on the EMME model and also VISSIM. And at that time, my knowledge is very basic. So when they trying to trying to find someone to work on the LRT projects, there's a lot of simulation. And during the whole interview, I can feel like I probably could not find this job because I can feel like their expectation and what I can do. But I didn't feel very uncomfortable because after that, like Jenny said, I definitely want to find someone I feel more comfortable. And I also want to share like software is a tool, but definitely you need to understand more like they can realize in reality. And also besides software like skills, you also have a lot of the other things. For example, you understand about the calculation and all the calculation and analysis skill you learn from the college, and also writing, communication. Those ones can definitely have more like advantages compared to the other part. So I was thinking like when you're trying to find a job, you also need to showcase like what is really good for you and know yourself as well, and find a position. If you have some deficiencies, that's okay. Just be honest and showing that. Usually, I think currently the company definitely support a lot of training once you're there to help you. So I think that's my
and
comments.
there's a good message in there. Like, so showing that you understand why a company is cost estimating, right? Like you're showing you understand what the job is and why they need it is part of winning it, right? It's that recognition. Yeah, this was a really good conversation. Thank you everyone for participating and for watching. So to the viewers, please remember to like this video, and if you did, and subscribe to CITE so that you can get notified for future videos. And again, thank you everyone for joining us today.